Hello, welcome to Siege Budget Brews. I'm Tim, and tonight we're going to discuss Don't Believe That Dirty DDB. But before we get started, please check out our Discord and our Patreon. Links are in the description below. And if you like our content, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out a lot. And tonight I am joined by my dear friend Flashback. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm good, Tim. How you doing tonight?
Doing good. You ready to talk some smack about the DDB?
Always. And the Tanisha's number one simp here.
Right? Right. So, all right. Well, just to kind of get us rocking and rolling, getting us started, a couple of things I wanted to read off was kind of like, what does the DDB consider themselves? What the DDB is, according to the DDB staff, is that's the CDH checklist database. Is that the DDB is a showcase of different decks from CDH. The goal of the DDB is to highlight a variety of different decks that exist within the space, within that space, to help new players acclimate to CDH concepts and possibilities, while also helping established players find inspiration for brewing and playing. And then the next thing is, what does the DDB consider themselves not? They do not consider themselves a tier list nor a collection of tournament decks. Should not be considered in any way a list of best decks in CDH, nor an exhaustive list of decks. That is CDH. It is a collection of decks that the DDB managers and reviewers believe underscore just some of the variety of options available to players within the world of CDH. All right. So now that we got that formality out of the way, Flash, what do you think the DDB is?
The DDB, how I look at it, in my perspective, it's a compilation of deck lists that at one point when I started, which I started in 2019, it
Mm-hmm.
was it was a stepping stone. It was my local scene was me and another person. So
Right,
I
right,
looked at it. It was I have an idea. I want to get into something. And the resources we had at the time was like the spell seekers and playing with power. There wasn't really any information about CDH outside of, hey, we get to play as hard as we want, and this is kind of the resource that we use by.
right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, to like, so I've been playing CEH so long that like I remember when it was just a spreadsheet on a Google Doc, and I have seen it kind of like wax and wane from being like very broad to being very narrow, and I kind of think that maybe the reality of what the DDB is and what various people want the DDB to be don't line up. And I think that that causes no end of conflict within our community. Okay?
I absolutely agree.
So, like, for example, I have seen the DDB go super strict and just like, these 5 decks are the best. And then everything all the way down to like just becoming bloated with even decks that really aren't even playable. Like, sure, they might be fine at like some random LGS somewhere, maybe. I don't know. Anytime I've seen anybody play the deck, it's been like just really underperformed, didn't do anything, blah, 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 right?
It's still out of the database, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, it is. But so then that kind of leads into the next thing is that so when you get this constant like oscillation, you're not you're not able to like a state like establish what you really are. You know what I'm saying? Because if you oscillate to like paring it down real to really narrow and then like allowing it to balloon back up and then paring it back, like you keep kind of like you just kind of run from like appeasing one group to appeasing another, but you never really do either one effectively. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
absolutely. It definitely will fall into the where none of us are going to be content, and it just turns into this race of who can get more on or who can get onto the database to begin with.
Yeah. Then you kind of couple it with So like, so just really at the end of the day, they're just very inconsistent. I mean, I don't know. You remember a couple of months where they cut a bunch of decks off the database, like maybe like 40 decks. They like just like were like, nah, we're done, no more. But then
Yeah,
like some of the decks that they left on there were worse than some of the decks they took off, and like pretty markedly. Like for example, I know we have a lot of friends who like Orvar, for example, right? Orvar's never done shit, but
it,
Teferi did. Teferi's at least won one deck, one tournament, or placed in a top 16 or top 4 in the last 12 months. Or Orvar has never done jack. You know what I'm saying? Of the mono green decks that they left on there, like they took off the decks that have actually performed in events and left up decks, left up some decks that didn't.
yeah, I know. Hashtag free Marwin.
Yeah, or right. I mean,
I mean,
and
Yeva, as much as a joke it is in the community, it does have a place. You know, it has shown results where Brostorm and Yisan haven't.
well, Yisan has. Brostorm has not. Yisan top 16. Oh God, what was it? It was in the top 16 of a tournament, at least that I'm aware of. I just cannot recall which one in the past 12 months. I'm not saying that's great, but I'm just saying, like, when you're comparing that with a deck that, while is wildly popular, has not performed well in 5 years, like,
It is aggressively mediocre where Yisan and Marwin have been getting tools repetitively in the past 12 to 16 months.
right. I mean, I don't even think Yisan or Morrowind's that great for a tournament deck. I mean, to be honest, as much of a fan I am of it, and I did pretty well with it in the MLC. I still don't think it's like I wouldn't take Yeva off before I took off Yisan or before I took off Morrowind, just because Yeva's done something. Like if we're trying to,
Yeva's actually won something.
as much as I'd hate to say it, like I don't think it's, and I don't even think Yeva's that great of a deck either, to be honest. I think Morrowind's actually better, mostly because you can you're not so parasitic.
Yeah, you're actively doing game actions when you should be doing game actions. Where Yeva,
Yeah,
you kind of you kind of play off of the skill of other players, and you're playing everyone else's hand.
right. Yeah. Well, so like that was kind of like the last big snafu, but like in the past, like they've had like that recommended tab, and then they've had, and so there's a lot of obvious like pet decks from like the managers on there, and then those decks are on there at the expense of decks that are slightly more effective.
Absolutely, I agree. Like Opus Thief doesn't have a place anymore.
Well, it got taken off, didn't it?
Oh, I, I thought I
I
didn't know it got taken off.
I think
Did
it did. I'm gonna look right now. Bus. No, it's still on there, but it's under Timnacrom. Oh no, that's not it. Yeah, Timnacrom Breach. Yep,
yeah,
it's
no, it's just
gone.
Blue Farm now.
Yeah, it's
Because
just Blue Farm now.
Opus Thief was considered its own deck at one point.
Well, it was, but it was a good deck back in the Hulk days because it stopped the Hulk players from being able to like sculpt. But also, like at that point, that was before Breach was really invented. That was before Oracle, and it was a different deck, and it was a different deck for different times. Like that's the thing is the DDB tends to be all over with what it wants to keep on and what it wants to keep off.
Yeah,
Um,
what decks keep updated is what really keeps it hard is because I I know people that will literally just change an art of a land and every 3 months to keep it on the database where you're really not making any real innovation or
or keeping it
doing
up for the meta.
exactly. Like I can tell you in the past 6 months the blue farm deck has easily changed 12 times.
Mm-hmm. A lot. I mean, shit. We just had this conversation not even 2 days ago. That if 3 months ago, if you had told me that we were going to be putting Cavern If I had tried to put Cavern of Souls and Lavinia in my blue farm list, y'all would have laughed at me.
How about the fact that I know multiple people now that are running 2 to 3 Final Fortune effects in their blue farm lists.
Yeah, I like to stop at one, but that's just me personally. But even then, like the fact that like the list isn't absolute, you know what I'm saying? The other thing is that a lot of the like to get there's just a lot of like I'm fine with questionable stuff. Like I'm fine with the DDB being super broad in scope, personally. Like I would rather it have more options than less. And I thought it was pretty egregious to cut all of those decks. I mean, sure. And like because like take it like these half measures again. Like if you're gonna take everything off, you might as well take everything off that's not worth having on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. If it's not relevant, take it off.
Yeah. I mean, like, why the fuck are we? Why do we have green white Sisay on here as an example?
Well, what why do we? Why is there like 3 different lists for like Kedis Malcolm when
I don't know. It's kind of the same thing. So I mean, other than some like minor, like other than like some pretty petty gripes like this, I guess I would consider, at least on my part, like I don't actually think the problem with the DDB is the DDB. I think the problem with the DDB is us, the community.
I agree. I've been skating around it, but my biggest problem with the DDB is it becomes a clout farming simulator.
Well, yes, it does. But it also like we as a community have this like love-hate relationship with the DDB. And it does revolve around the clout, but or another way to put it is popularity. If you have a list on the DDB, that list in that sphere you're now popular. Okay? And that instantly makes your word carry more weight in that sphere. If you are somebody who has multiple lists on the DDB, like let's say like you have 3 or 4 Grixis lists on there, now your weight in that sphere carries more weight. That weight is not predicated upon skill, it is predicated upon popularity. So that drives our community to want to make sure we have that on there. Now, as we just talked about earlier, the DDB states that they're not a tier list, they're not a lot of these things. But when in actuality, they are. Because unfortunately, what is on and off that website very much directly dictates what is and isn't CDH. And by them skirting around it and not acknowledging it and leaning into it, they're constantly giving themselves problems. And
They're
they're doing the
pushing the
community.
issue onto the players and the community.
They are, but I mean, also at the same time, it's every fucking DDB update. There's like a bunch of fucking drama. And and then when people don't get on, they get all butthurt. Then they ask, why did I not get my list on? Then they get like this half-ass answer as to why about missing staples. And then one of the reviewers had submitted a similar list and got on and was 3 cards off. They didn't
All because
steal
they
your
added
list.
like
Go ahead.
it's like all they did was add a force of negation, and it's like the deck plays worse with it.
Or a Aether Vial or something, you know. I've actually had people who their list didn't make it on, and then a list with an Aether Vial made it on. That was 99 cards the same. Like, but the thing is like stuff like that goes on, and then so until we're as a community willing to just either A, allow it to exist like it exists, B, like have more than one fucking resource. I mean, I tried having
CD Special Bruce.
No, I took that down. I took it down.
Really?
I took down the budget list page, yeah. Because it was only like 2, that and the finals pods were only 2% of my website traffic. And nobody submitted lists for it. So obviously nobody was interested. I had it up for a year. I curated it. I you know, the match results were devolved into me hunting everything down. And so I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done. Like, out of my 4,000 hits I get a month, 4,500 hits a month, I was getting like maybe like 30 on those pages. So obviously nobody cared. Like, that's the thing. That's that love-hate relationship. It's like everybody wants to be the popular kid. And then when they don't get to be the popular kid, they get butthurt about it. And like, not everybody can be the popular kid. Like, sorry. Like, that's just not how the world works. And this, like, God, I don't get it. I don't get it. And any honest attempt to make any other resource that doesn't even get picked up now. So I don't know. So move kind of getting down to the next. So I guess just to kind of now, do you feel that there's so I've discussed some of my thoughts on inconsistencies. Do you think there's any other inconsistencies in how the DDB wants to be viewed versus how the community views it?
I think the inconsistency that I have an issue with, as someone that still uses as a resource, honestly still uses as a resource,
Mm-hmm.
is if you're going to take out irrelevant decks, take them all out. That you can't play 50-50. You just like in CDH, you can't have your pet card in your deck just because it's your pet card. If you're gonna, it's either you're gonna go whole ass or you're not gonna do it at all.
Right.
So if we're gonna have 200 decks that are slightly similar but do a different thing, like we're gonna have both Misk and Booze on it. Yeah, both Misk and Booze do similar things. They both have Hulk related lines, but
Mm-hmm.
they play differently.
Right. Yeah.
Do I think that the Sans White one's better? No, I don't. But it is an option that you have at that point.
Right. Yeah. Well, it and to show the broad options, I think would be a better like I had said just a few minutes ago. I think that if they would have just kept everything on and just hard and fast and said we want to be broad, we want to be inclusive, and we want to cast as wide of a net as possible, and just stuck to it, eventually it would have stabilized.
I absolutely agree.
You know?
I,
But instead what do? They rip a bunch of stuff down, or they make a recommended tab that's got like a bunch of outdated lists on it anyway, or just kind of it's like, man, come on. Come
or
on,
just be
guys.
harsher on the people that maintain the lists.
Or be uber strict on what you put up. Like, and don't put up your managers and reviewers pet decks. Like, it doesn't matter how great they tell you the deck is. Like, play in a tournament, let it do something. Then put it up there. You know what I mean?
If even if it didn't post results because the builder doesn't do anything. If you're able to prove in a situation that it is actually able to maintain with the other decks with skilled players, then it's one thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of
And
but
I think the DDB should be more than just looking at a deck list and then going, oh, oh darn, it doesn't have a pact negation. Let's throw it out. It doesn't have a forcible. Let's throw it out. If someone's going to review the deck, they need to actually play the deck and be able to understand it more than just looking at a compilation of cards and going, no.
well, now that's a little bit of an economy of scale. So, as somebody who gets hit with a lot of oddball shit all the time, like putting a deck together and playing it is kind of like to get enough reps in to actually try it out, especially with the volume that they get, isn't super realistic unless they make very egregious, like very abrupt changes to how they do things.
Counter argument here, and I'm not trying to interrupt you, but they're hiring more people, or they're getting more people volunteer. If there's 30 people on there and there's 350 decks, that's 10 decks a person.
You're right, but trying to play 10 different decks in like a 30-day period, like just assembling the cards alone is some like a lot of effort.
And there can still be a viewing on it and go, this isn't a real deck. You can obviously tell if someone was pulling out like a Cedar and Thrasios deck that it's not going to be a good deck 9 times out of 10.
Right. Now, what I do think that might want to happen is that there might need to be, and that's kind of why they started doing like the Brewers Corner thing. But again, like putting somebody on the Brewers Corner and then taking it off is kind of like, haha, fuck you. Like that's the thing is like they do like a lot of this shit that's just like, you know, um, on top of just like trying, like, yeah. Now
And Brewers Corner I think is a good thing. It
it
throws
is,
something out there, but then it has to be tested and proved as it being
yeah,
a brew. It
right,
just
and then a commute like a commute. And there's no real good way to get data, and I get that. I think that that's going to start changing over the next year, 12 to 18 months, because the amount of like events has really started to pick up.
I'm thankful for Eminence Gaming for really stepping up and picking up more events so we can get more data, and Chaos Gaming for setting up events so we are able to get more data.
Well, and that data to be centralized, because before any
Exactly.
data collection efforts were very decentralized, very cottage industry, like, which is great. It was a good start. I mean, myself included was kind of cottage, was decentralized and kind of cottage industry. But to be able to like, yeah, like you remember Oracle bot?
Yeah.
Okay, so the bot that Playing with Power uses for their league, that was
Yeah.
supposed to be tied into a website that you could query all of the servers that were using it. Never happened. Like that was the intended goal, like early on. But now that like we've kind of figured out like as a community that like while leagues are fun, they're not great for data collecting, and that um uh the community itself, especially the competitive part of the community, and by competitive part of the community, I mean the part of the community that likes to compete in tournaments or events, really just prefer tournaments, like just standard kind of run of the mill, you know,
2 day
as a
events. Yeah.
yeah, as opposed to like a month long ladder. You know what I'm saying? Overall, and so Eminence really having this is gonna I it's a game changer, especially now that it's gonna be able to like start. We'll be able to start querying decks now on their site based off of the results. Like that's a key piece that we have been missing as a community, and um to get enough resources to do that was very cost prohibitive. Like I looked into it like years ago, and it was easily 3 or 4 grand to get some type of basic tournament software that would be tied into a web GUI that people could query. Like minimum. And that's not even counting maintenance and hosting and all the other stuff.
And that's why
So,
I'm so thankful for Eminence
you know what?
because
I got a subscription to their tournament software and I don't even use it. I just paying them $5 a month forever till they stop taking it. You know what I mean? But so okay, so there is one thing that kind of I really feel is pretty glaring that the DDB could do. So, for example, on my website, um, we have like our intro page, our little FAQ, little submit thing, and then we have like a resources tab. This was not hard to put together. I know the guy who did it. He's my webmaster, Crutchfield, did a great job, and it's not hard to maintain. Okay, they could very easily add community resources as the literal most forward facing thing in our community. They do not list or link or reference anything other than themselves. And I'm not saying you got to have like templates and stuff like I do, but listing places to play, listing places to get information from, listing the subreddit, listing the Nexus, listing whatever, the big content creators, anything at all. In a centralized hub would be a boon for the community. And while I don't know how to do web development to do this, the guy who did this said it was not very difficult. I will take his word. I will take him at his word for that. And this is very much something that they should be doing, but they just outright refuse to because of reasons. I don't know what the reasons are, but quite honest, like they're excuses as far as I'm concerned. With as big as they are, I get their volunteer staff. I get they're not in it for the money. I get it that they're not in. I mean, nobody's in this. I mean, if you're making CH content to get rich, you're a fool.
You're better off just playing arena at that point.
Or another game, even. Like, you will make more money doing not doing this. Trust me. And but so they do list the deck discords for the decks, which is good. But they could integrate broader, that is definitely a thing that they could do, and just won't do it.
I absolutely agree. Just being able to link the Reddit Discord and the Nexus would, as someone that's new, would increase tremendously, for player base.
Yeah.
When I started in 2019, it was maybe you find a group.
Yeah.
It was all word of mouth.
It was. That was how I found, that's how Founders Club happened. Back in the day, that was those of you who don't know, Founders Club was a invite only play Discord. That basically started off of the Philly group or the Boston players, kind of.
I believe it was the Philly group. It was like Mikey and
yeah,
Chai
like those guys, and then it just kind of grew into kind of what it is today. It's not like super active anymore, but it, at one point it was like the place to be. But that's the thing though. Like, I mean, how do you find that place if you don't know where that it's there? I mean, how do you find, sure, the Nexus is pretty well advertised just because it had a YouTube channel at one point and there was a bunch of posts on Reddit and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And I get that resources can be kind of tight, especially for something they get 300-400 submissions a month, something obscene in that number for decks. That's a lot of decks. And I get it. You can't play all of them. I don't expect you to. But I do think you could do more than just kind of because the feedback they give people is pretty oh, your deck was just missing some obvious staples, and then you're like, well, what obvious
name the staples?
Oh, you weren't playing Mox Diamond. Well, I'm playing 4 Null Rods, asshole. What do you expect? I'm not, I'm playing a deck that's trying to blow up artifacts every 3 turns. Why would I be playing stuff like that?
Why am I playing a Soul Ring when my deck is Shatter.deck?
Right, yeah. There was a guy who didn't get his list approved because he wasn't on Mox Diamond, but he was running legit 4 Null Rods in his deck. He was running Null Rod, Collector Oof, Stony Silence, and some
Karn.
other. What?
And
well, no,
Karn.
Karn's asymmetrical. There was one other one, I can't remember, Kataki or something. And it's dude, all right, I get it. I mean, I don't think telling a guy playing a 4 Null Rod deck that, not having a Mox Diamond or something or Soul Ring is enough to get them, to not get it approved. How about maybe questioning the fact that they're playing 4 Null Rods when there's really only 3 good ones?
Yeah, that 4th Null Rod could be just a dork.
Yeah, or a Manglehorn or a Karn, something asymmetrical. You know what I'm saying? It was whatever, I forget what the 4th one was, but it was symmetrical. Whenever I get submissions, I try to provide feedback. Now, granted, my volume is a lot less than theirs, but I'm also an army of 1. You know what I'm saying? most of my submissions are in the Discord. They're not actually out for the website. Uh, but I mean, like, it takes me like 5 minutes to write up something, to give it a quick peruse and write it up, and I don't know. I don't know, man. So, all right, let's see what else we got
And you
going
know
on.
what? If they're hiring, if they're bringing people in, they should have a strict guideline to follow. They're not just play off of bias. It's if it was me, any stacks decks wouldn't get on the DDB. I don't believe stacks is a viable thing in CDH anymore. But any deck that was playing a Underworld Breach and a dockside and had an effective loop would be in at that point, because if you're able to jam a turn one intuition into a breach loop, you're winning. Right?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, essentially, what is and what isn't CDH is predicated upon what four people think. Because the reviewers review and they give suggestions, but at the end of the day, the four managers are the ones that make the yay or nay.
And I think we should have more than 4 managers.
We should probably have more than four managers, and maybe the review should be a little like, I get it that they're kind of in this like spot where it's because of the way it's set up and like such, like all the updates are such a production. And when I say production, I don't mean production on their end. I mean it's like waiting on the election. You know what I'm saying? Like it or not, everybody's watching it. So you need to accept the fact that everybody's watching it and roll with it, or just stop doing it. Like unfortunately, like sometimes it's best to just walk away. If you don't have the temperament, or if you don't have like things don't go like if you're the one doing all of this effort and it's not panning out the way you think it, like the way you want it to pan out, just stop. Like just put the baton down. I know that I'm not saying like quit being a DDB manager or anything. I'm just saying that like if you're endlessly frustrated, figure out why and make changes to actually like stem it. And sometimes those changes are to stop, or to like really let people know that they're just being ridiculous. Like, I mean, as much as they want to say they're not a tier list, the community just can treat them like a tier list. And no amount of them saying we're not a tier list is not going to change that. Unfortunately. Because when a new player, I mean, the whole reason why I invented this channel is because I got tired of seeing people post questions on the subreddit or in a Discord, and everybody's like, just proxy scrub, or, just play Grix, well, it was Flashhawk at the time. Just play Flashhawk. And it's like, well, maybe we could give him a better answer than that. And so that's why I decided to put budget in my name, even though I'm not a budget channel and I'm not a brewing channel at all.
You know what? Your website was the second resource I went to.
Well, there you go. Probably because it had
Like,
budget in its name, right?
well, it was more information. When
Yeah.
you're walking in blindly into something, you're gonna try to absorb as much information as you possibly can. So, I I went when I was looking, I was like, I want to build Rograt. What do I do? So I started looking at Grixis shells, started looking at blue red shells, and I was like, well, I can't afford a time twister. I can't really afford an intuition at the moment. So what options do I have? And then you look into it more, and you're like, oh, hey, breach is affordable. These Cloudstone Curio loops seems like a fun time. And then you start running into more and more, and then
Yeah.
you start getting into games, and you realize, oh, this is bad. Or you get into a group and you go, hey, this is what I'm running right now. What do you guys think? And then they go, it's trash. Take all of this part out, put this in. Or in my situation, they told me just build Blue Farm.
Or proxy. Yeah. But that's fine. That's different when you're like at an LGS or in a play group, not just like the first time you're trying to seek help on the internet and then you get fucking dogpiled. Like, I'm like tired of it. And wanted to do something. But like, I mean, that's the thing. Is like, no matter what the DDB tries, they're gonna be treated as a tier list. So they either need to just like, honestly, I think they should do, like, if I was running the DDB, I'll say that kind of is I would stop taking submissions. I would not. I would, as the reviewers, and what I would do is I would take the reviewer team and the manager team, and I would go and look for lists, and then
I
just
agree.
incorporate those lists to the website as we deem appropriate, and stop taking submissions.
Go back to recruitment instead of submission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because what that would do is that would, I mean, sure, it would obviously be editorial opinion, but we already have editorial opinion. But now we have editorial opinion based on people wanting to get approval, seeking approval, because that's what a lot of what people do when they submit decks is they're seeking approval from the DDB. And then they get upset because they don't get that approval for X, Y, or Z reasons. And if they just stop taking submissions, like, you can't tell me that those people don't have that between the reviewers and everybody, they don't have their finger on the pulse enough.
Oh, talking with Sinestro in Vegas, he is very well aware of what's good and bad. Even though he's got some hot takes that he thinks Rog and Timness better than Rog Sai, but
Or that Tasker is still viable in 2023.
that is also another thing that I got to deal with in Vegas. But
I mean, I love Tassiger. It's a fun deck to play. In fact, Sinestro, like, he really liked I used to curate. I don't curate it so much now. I have a budget Tassiger list, but like, really, at the end of the day, like, it's just a bad Thrasios Timno.
and even then, I don't.
Go ahead.
Hotter take. Thrasios and Timno is only good by Spleen and Sick Robot. I have never seen anyone else do good with it.
I've done good with it from time to time, but it's definitely a deck that needs to be refined into a meta. And I definitely think that that shell, like that CST shell right now, one has probably seen better days, and two is probably a little outdated, like, mentality wise. So like I've got a test brew that I've been working with. It's okay. But the idea is that I'm running like 3 Oracle effects, 3 consult effects, plus Praetor's Grasp, and I've taken all the other combos out. So I'm not running Scepter, I'm not running Basalt Cannon, I'm not running Swift Reconfig. Deck doesn't make infinite mana. It just makes enough mana to consult Oracle.
So kind of like Gustav's Thrasios and Vile Smasher list.
Yeah.
But
Like,
you draw cards better.
yeah, right. Well, and I am running Adnos, I'm running all the Storm stuff, I'm running all the stuff to, like, not necessarily try to be the fastest deck in the pod, but try to keep pace. You know what I'm saying? To not be too far behind.
You're if you're playing black in 2023, you're playing Nas at this point. There's just no reason not to.
I mean, there's some circumstances, but very few. I mean, not all decks Nas equally. You know?
Not all decks Nas equally. I agree, but there's still not a reason not to. I'm not saying all Nas's are good Nas's, but you need card velocity at some point.
You do. I just don't think that, like, playing ad nauseum in Razakats, for example, is a good idea. Not that playing Razakats is a good idea, but you get my point.
Yeah, the super slow decks, they have to build up their engines a different way, and that's when you lean more into the pot effects and you're leading more into the Evo effects.
Yeah, and which is what Tasker does. But even then, I just don't. But anyhow, I think if they would just stop, if they would just switch over to just being like, it's just be invite only instead of submission based, like, they would get they get the same, like, they would probably have some of the same problem, but it would not be. So what happens right now is everything kind of goes quiet, and then they do an update, and then it's like, the sky is falling, and they get a billion emails, and they get all the drama happens, and then each cycle this repeats. So instead of just doing that, if they just either like work the list off as they went, like, So instead of them posting like a huge list of what got added and removed, if they just kept updating it constantly, or just purely went, oh, hey, can we add your list to the site? We like it. And then, but what that will do is that will decentralize the drama and make it much easier to like deal with, because it won't be all at once. It'll be like a little trickle at a time. Like maybe a trickle to the point where the hole could be plugged. Because if you're not making this huge production, like submit by January 8th, and then we will announce if you make it or not by January 27th. Like that's 3 weeks of like sitting around waiting. So you got 300 people who are waiting on your approval or not. And then anybody who doesn't get your approval gets butthurt about it. Like, come on, guys. If you can't realize that that's a bad idea, then...
The glaring problem with just doing by recruitment only, then it becomes nepotism.
It's already nepotism.
I agree, it already is, but it leans more into it at that point. But you
might as well just go all the way. Like, instead of these half-ass measures, like, if it's already, like, I wouldn't say it's like pure nepotism, but like, the closer you are to the king, the better you get treated. Like, the closer you are to the inner circle, the easier it is for you to get lists on. Trust me, Vanifar's on the database.
You got me there.
Like, in what fucking world is that deck worth playing?
You know what? It pods, I guess? I've never seen Croxa do anything either, in my opinion.
Okay, there you go. I mean, Croxa's at least Rakdos. It's got Nas and goes Burr.
It's, okay, counter argument. It's Simic. It does the Simic things.
But aren't playing Dockside and Breach. Back to your earlier saying anything with Ad Nauseam and Breach and Dockside would get on the DDB.
You know what? I stand by that, but I'm just saying, Simic decks do the Simic thing. I didn't say Vannifar was good. I was just saying it does the thing slightly better than Rashmi.
Oh yeah, let's not forget about Rashmi being on there too, right? I don't think they took Rashmi off, did they? Let's confirm right now. Oh, they did. Okay, I stand corrected.
I don't think
we still got Grolnak.
Grolnak's actually...
It's okay. I'm talking shit at that point.
Yeah, no, Tatyova, it's missing a color. That's my issue with Tatyova.
Yeah, and the Sakashima Kadama, like, come on. Like, that deck hasn't done anything in 3 years.
Yeah, but I have fun with it. It's
fun, but a lot of decks are fun. But that's kind of the thing though. Like, when your friends and the people that you're like closely associated with get a bias anyway, you might as well just like fully acknowledge and just have the bias instead of like trying to keep up pretenses that you don't. Because for fuck's sake, any deck sick robot likes can go on there because he's a manager. Like, why the fuck is Cole on the website? I love that deck, but it's hot goddamn trash.
Zombie is trash.
Cole is trash. It takes like 4 cards, 6 mana, and it's in goddamn Boros. It needs more pieces to be assembled to win than any deck should reliably need. And it doesn't interact. It's not faster than everybody else. Like, I think Arden and Rograk is stronger. I said stronger.
It's bad though. It is.
I didn't say it was good. I just said it was stronger.
And
here's the difference.
And at that point, you're just better off playing Godo, which Godo's already been removed once.
I mean, at least it got put back on, but that was mostly to send a message. But like, that's the thing. Then they made that Godo wait a whole cycle to like somebody else had to resubmit a list, and like Like, come on. That's so much fucking pomp and circumstance. That's ridiculous.
Godo's gonna be around forever. It's count to 11 dot win.
Well, it's very like it's like burn. Like it's some iteration of that deck will probably always be viable unless they make a 5-mana Godo that does all the same shit. Regular 6-mana Godo is probably going to be around. But I mean, the point is like they took it off because it hadn't been updated in a long time. Instead of just like saying, I don't know, but then they kept it off for like a whole cycle. It's like, come on, like that is idiotic. They should have just at least replaced it with a placeholder list or something. You know, or been like, oh, hey, established Godo players X, Y, or Z. Give me a list to put up there, and then y'all submit a list. Like,
it's not like there isn't a Discord for Godo that you could have hit us up at.
I think they did actually like say, hey, y'all need to update it, and if you don't do it by X, Y, or Z, we're gonna take it down. And then the guy who is in charge of the list didn't. And then they took it down to like, you know, prove a point. And I'm just like, that's like expert level petty right there.
And you know, it was the first time it had a real update in probably a year because they got Jaxus. They're like, hey, Jaxus is like a heat shimmer. It does a thing.
Jaxus is great. I play Jaxus in my $100 build, man. That thing puts in work.
Oh, it actually does more than just like a heat shimmer.
Yeah. Yeah. It can do a lot. Yeah. And
copying a dockside. That's kind of important.
And then it draws a card when it dies.
It's free real estate.
Like who the fuck would draw a card tacked onto a dockside? Like, like I'm actually not sure if that clause. I think that clause is just with the blitz clause on.
Yeah, it's with the blitz.
I don't know if it's actually on the token or not. I forget off the top of my head.
It's on the token.
The token does get to draw a card. Okay. I wasn't like 100% sure after I said it, but
the token has blitz.
Like, that's the thing though. Like, if they just went like, instead of just block off the submissions, like just we're good. Like, y'all are too much of a pain in the ass. We're done. We'll find you. And sure, like that'll be obnoxious. People will whine a little bit, but it'll settle down. For one. And then two, as they add lists, there won't be this huge like that's the main problem right now. It's just like every time they update, there's just like, you know what I'm saying? And they like repeatedly sign themselves up for this. It's like, I don't even have a good comparison that's appropriate for YouTube to like what this is like. But it is very much
it is a Clinton scandal in a nutshell. Every 3 months.
Every like 6 weeks. Because they update about every like they have like a submission date that's about a month away, then it takes them like a couple of weeks to run through it. And then there's drama. And then just as soon as the drama falls off, starts again. So if they just stop taking submissions, like, no, we're good. Y'all are assholes. We're done. You don't deserve it. Because quite frankly, the fucker community doesn't. To be honest. You guys, you fucking quote me on that. We're all a bunch of assholes. Myself included.
Hey, you're my favorite asshole.
I'm glad I'm somebody's favorite asshole. And those guys do put in a lot of fucking work. They do. I'm not saying they don't. And that if they just said no more, y'all don't deserve it because y'all are dicks and whiny little bitches because y'all are. I'll say it because nobody else will. Because nerds aren't good at socializing or being like appropriate. And then just said, oh, hey, we like your list. We're going to put it up. Like, I bet you they get a lot less rumbling than they do now. And if they do get rumbling, it'll be just be a little trickle at a time. It wouldn't be this huge thing.
You're not waiting on submission rates. You know, it's...
Yeah, exactly. Because they just build up... Go ahead.
I was going to say, they pick a deck, they like it, they put it on the database. It doesn't have to be, you know, a quarterly update or whatever they do.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is that, so like not only, like, because with the submission deadline, that builds up suspense. So you already kind of get this, like, the community's propensity to want to seek that approval and that popularity from being on the website. Then there's like that deadline, so it's kind of like a bureaucratic like and then you have this like bated bated anticipation for the approval. And then you get approval or the letdown. And then even if you get that approval or letdown, you might just get like you might get taken down a couple months later, and then that approval is taken away. And then even if you're not like intentionally trying to get like your personal self-worth from it, like a lot of the community standing is based off of that. Like, to be honest. And
Yeah,
and that
it's either you're a top content creator or a DDB list, and if you're not either one of those and you haven't presented tournament results, you're nobody.
yeah, exactly. And then any idea you have that's not like literally just sniffing butts or, you know, quoting the cult leader du jour, um, you get dogpiled.
Like if your meta calls for a hydroblast, you play the hydroblast.
Fucking play the goddamn hydroblast, right, dude? That is what I love. So I finally got around to finishing the Brian Colville and Matt Sperling recap of Oktoberfest. Like, I don't know, maybe like a week and a half ago. Finally got through the whole thing. And the thing that I liked the most about it, not to say that there wasn't tons of good shit, but like the thing I liked the most was the fact that they were sensible. They were like, this is the 100 cards I picked out of the 140 playable cards. And then like they were, they had differences of opinion, and like they were like, yeah, I don't agree with you, but like I see your thought behind it. And like you get like I can respect your autonomy as a person, and that you've actually put thought into it. Like, even if it's not what I like, the same conclusion I came to. And like neither one of them were like, my opinion's right, you're like, just because they didn't match up didn't mean one person was wrong. Like,
Absolutely.
that was refreshing. I went back to listen 3 more times. Like,
But Brian Corvold and Matt Sperling are two amazing players in general.
they
So
are amazing players, but just the fact that like they weren't, like, they were just reasonable. Like,
so Sperling walked in there with this is the tools that he knew that he needed for his playstyle.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you're able to autonomize yourself as a player, you should be able to know what you need and what you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, for fuck's sake, he was like, yeah, I don't want to run Imp Seal. I was like, not a bad, like, it's a sorcery speed top deck tutor. Like,
It's not a hot take. I've played
yeah,
2 years
like,
without MSeal.
like, I mean, it's not a super hot take. I mean, well, but it is, because if you submitted a list without Imp Seal in black, you would get denied because you're not playing, obvious staples.
Oh yeah, and I hate Twister and Blue Farm. Kill me now.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's my point. Like I hate meme betrayal. I don't give a fuck how great everybody fucking says it is. Anytime I cast it and it's like, oh, what am I gonna do? Fucking flashback 2 dorks and play your 3-man, or play that crappy rock you got over there. Okay, ooh, I paid 3 mana to get a rock. Awesome. Thanks. Like,
I have won games with meme betrayal, but that's a
I'm
matter of opinion.
I have won games with meme betrayal, and then I've played it 20 more times, and it like got a cantrip and 2 dorks, and I was like, oh, great, awesome, sure.
Other times you get a breach and a wheel.
It's a lot better in the types of metas. Like, it's one of those cards where it's going to be really hot when it's hot in those metas, and then really not when it's not in other metas.
Oh
So,
yeah, no, it is a complete inbred card. I'm not
so,
going to take that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm not going to take it to an event. I'm probably going to play a Twister or a Yogswell at that point.
But if you had a list without it in there, everybody's like, oh my god, it's so great, blah blah. Well, yeah, if I'm playing it here in this inbred meta, it's great. Where everybody's playing, 14. Well, when 14 wheels are fired off in a game, yes. And guess what? When I play those decks, I put it in there for that meta. You know what I mean?
And it
But
comes back to the whole autonomy thing. You know,
mm-hmm.
the DDB should be used more for a beginner standpoint of understanding what is good for an open meta.
Yes, exactly. It should be under, yeah. And that you yeah, they just gotta dial down the production of it.
There's so many extra steps and mental
There is.
gymnastics that they go through every quarter.
Yeah, and then like yeah. And don't even get me started on like just well, and just like the lack of that's kind of the other thing is like I mean kind of the lack of like broad community support. Like they're not hosting resources. Like just put up a link to the subreddit and the subreddit Discord. Like at a bare minimum. Like
Yeah,
reference other things because and it's the same thing with the subreddit. Like they're no better. Like all their shit's all tucked up off on the side and what is there and what isn't is not that great. You know. So all right, man. I think we're well past the point of just old man ranting.
all right.
You got any other thoughts?
You know, for a new player, the DDB is still a useful resource. It, I'd recommend it. I recommend it all the time, actually, for people. I'm the guy that they talk to at my local game store, and
Mm-hmm.
I advocate very hard for the CDH meta to appear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even just for casual play, because it gives a new feel,
Mm-hmm.
and
It
the
does.
people that play it understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend the DDB, and it's like, even if you pick the worst deck on there, it's still probably gonna be better than some hodgepodge that you put together because you thought the Ur Dragon was cool.
Or just the wrong not or at least the Ur Dragon deck that was on there is on there has been on there is on a semi-linear plan.
No, there's no Ur Dragon. It was the other dragon.
Scion of the Ur Dragon, the son
Yeah,
of the Ur.
yeah.
Oh, you mean the one where you just pitch Skittles and kill one guy and then be sad because you didn't kill the other two?
Hey, you know what? That's still better. No, you make infinite mana, you put all your dragons in your graveyard, then you cast a Living Death. Come on, Dork 101.
Hmm. See, I just one shot at one person and then was sad because I didn't get to one shot the other two.
And that's why you play Godo.
That is why I play Godo because I have to take my shoes off to count to 11.
That's
If
all right. I
only
play Blue Farm. I don't know how to read.
there's a lot of words on all those cards. And actually,
They
I
don't.
play a lot of Blue Farm too.
The
I
words
love
don't.
playing,
The words don't matter. You just cast Crom, cast Breach, and sometimes you just win.
and everybody just scoops. Like, oh, you got Breach and Crom. Okay, we're scooping now.
It happens.
It does. Oh man, when I went and played in that $100 tournament, down in Ohio with Big Richie and Hokey, I played Cody Turbo Nas, and like nobody like they did not know what hit them. I would like turn 2 Cody, turn 3 activate Cody, go get Profane Tutor for Bring to Light Ad Nos, cast Ad Nos, and they're like, what? I'm like, uh-huh. And then when I would breach them with Lotus Petal and Brain Freeze,
You're like, the third of my budget is in this one combo right here.
mm-hmm. and the rituals to get to it. No, literally, that $100 Cody list is like all the money is in like Cabal Ritual, Calling of the Week, um,
Breach,
Breach,
Brain
Brain
Freeze,
Freeze, Lotus
Pedal.
Petal. In fact, it's so much of the budget went to that, like the Rite of Flame and all that stuff. that I had to switch over from Oracle to Dualcaster Twin Flame.
You know what? It gets
Plus
job
the
done.
deck made a lot of black red mana anyway, so like trying to do double blue was like nigh
Without
impossible.
rocks, impossible.
It was hard. It was hard. So, well, especially on $100 budget because you don't have any dual lands. Like you're basically just playing like basics and
Taplands.
not even well the tap. So the tap lands I was playing were all soul lands, where the the Surprising Scary and that whole cycle, Peat
Yeah.
Bog and all that. Yeah.
Well,
The-
you just needed to count to 5.
Mm-hmm. I did. I need to count to 4. I need
Yeah.
actually what I needed to do was curve 3 into 4 and have a 1-drop in my hand.
It's a little more contextual data than Godo.
Godo is count to it's basically count to 11 unless you have a cost reducer out. But all right. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like I do definitely want to say that I respect what the guys at the DDB do.
Oh yeah, I love all the managers there. Sinestra, Sick Robot, all of them.
And they do a lot of hard work, and the reviewers do a lot of hard work, even if they do some knuckleheaded stuff sometimes. And that, maybe could do some things different, and maybe it wouldn't be such a cluster all the time. But not me to do. I'm not a manager.
If my job ain't my problem, and I'm just here to bitch about it.
Yep, not my circus, not my monkeys. So, all right. Well, have a good night, everybody. And thanks again for watching and listening to the Boomer Rant. Bye.